Tristan with Translation Exchange. I want to welcome everybody that's joining us for today's webinar. We're going to go ahead and just wait another minute here as some last minute people join us. Hi, this is Tristan with Translation Exchange. Thanks for joining our webinar today. Just waiting for a couple more folks to join us, and we'll be getting started here in the next minute or so. All right, let's go ahead and get started. My name is Tristan. I'm the Director of Sales here at Translation Exchange. For today's webinar, I also have Jonas Kessler joining us, who's our Director of Business Development, as well as Michael Berkovich, our founder and CEO. Jonas will be starting off the presentation by covering a few slides, and then we'll turn it over to Michael to go through the Ruby on Rails demo. Jonas, over to you.
Great, thanks a lot, Tristan, and thanks everybody who is attending today. Really appreciate it. In the event that anybody needs to leave early, or if you have any colleagues that weren't able to attend, we're going to have a copy of this webinar on a recording as well. We'll send the link out to all the attendees and anybody else who had received the original invite. So no worries if something comes up and you have to dip out. We really appreciate you all taking a little bit of time on your calendar today and speaking with us about our localization solution. So again, I am Jonas Kessler. I'm the Director of Business Development. Just to give a little bit of a background, Translation Exchange is about a 2-year-old company at this point. It was originally founded by Michael Berkovich and our other co-founder, Ian McDaniel. The two of them had actually worked together for a few companies in the Los Angeles area previously. One was called Genie and the other was called Yammer, which has since been acquired by Microsoft. The two of them were tasked with localizing both the entire Genie and Yammer websites and full product offerings into up to 70 different languages. Needless to say, it was an enormous project, a great learning experience, and it was the foundation for what they were able to develop for Translation Exchange. And they realized the value that it had, not just for those companies, but really any company out there who was at the stage of either trying to break into more language markets or maybe create a more streamlined and efficient process from the old scenario that they used to use to get this content to the global stage. Now, this next slide, for some of you who have been involved in the ground floor of localization, might be fairly familiar. For those of you who aren't, it might not be as familiar, but just to give you kind of a high-level view. In terms of simplified sort of translation projects, of course, if you're just doing a simple Microsoft Word document or a spreadsheet, it's a very simple process. All you have to do is send that to your translation agency, and they do what they do best, send it back to you in an email, and you can review it, make sure it's what it needs to be. Of course, content really exists in so many different other areas these days, though, aside from just Microsoft Word documents. You've got content that are for web CMS tools, you've got mobile apps, you've got email distribution, even social and some HR tools. In order to get that content translated, it's a pretty manual and labor-intensive process. It involves a lot of heavy lifting, cutting, copying, and pasting of code, taking that code and maybe uploading it to an Excel file, or maybe an FTP like a Google Drive or Dropbox or Box, and then you're emailing things back and forth to translation agencies all over the globe. So it makes it very inefficient to communicate and collaborate as well. A lot of times if you have an issue or a question, you might be in bed by the time the answer comes to you, and vice versa. By the time you can get back to your translation agency, it might be a day or two as well. It creates a real kind of log jam in terms of being able to get that content out. So what Michael and Ian were able to produce was a list of different API integrations and software development kits. And right now, currently, we're running close to about 60 different integrations. So what he was able to do was eliminate that heavy, labor-intensive process, the cutting, copying, and pasting, And now the client can identify a source file with just a couple of clicks of a button. They can wrap that up into a translation-friendly format, like an XLIF file. They can choose the agency they want it to get translated with, send it off, and then basically it'll come back in context for them to review it. They can see it either in their website or within their code, or even, let's say, on a mobile app or an email distribution before it goes live. They can make any changes in it. They can collaborate with their translation agency as well, and really cut down on the time significantly that it takes to get these campaigns out. Ordinarily, it might take some companies, several weeks to get, let's say, one email campaign or one web page translated. Now we can reduce that to a matter of only a few days or even a few hours. So what we've built out was the stacks for virtually every type of area you can imagine that content exists. Engineering, of course, we're going to be talking about Ruby on Rails today, obviously. For customer service, like the Zendesks and Desks of the world, PR files, communications, even product design, and web CMSs like WordPress, Sitecore, Adobe, Drupal, you name it. Again, right now we're working with about 60 or so different integrations, but we're fairly customer-driven in terms of our roadmap. We do have, I guess, a release about once every week or two with a new integration connector. But if there's a particular demand or desire by a client to get an integration built, we can definitely expedite it and put it on the roadmap and work as hard as we can to get that to the top of the line. I will preface this also by saying, of course, we're not a translation agency, if you weren't aware of that already. We are purely a SaaS technology company. So we're 100% vendor agnostic. We don't really have any financial say or stake in who the client uses at the end of the day to get the translations done. Now, if they're working with an agency and they're happy with it, great. We're not here to twist their arm and convince them to go anywhere else. If, however, they are interested in testing the waters, maybe benchmarking a few different agencies, seeing if they can get either better pricing or better quality, we do have a translation vendor marketplace, and we're currently working with about a dozen or so high-quality professional translation partners. Now, the machine translation engines, of course, we utilize them as well. We don't recommend that for the higher quality production or the more important projects. It's really only going to be for like a 1 or 2 line translation project that maybe you would have somebody in-house who's a native speaker and they can review that and make sure it looks good before going to market. But obviously for the more critically important projects, you're always going to want to use a human translation vendor. And the way that they can send a project through our system, again, if they're already working with an agency, that agency can be uploaded and get a username and password. They'll be trained and on board at the same time to receive those projects and work within the Translation Exchange platform. But again, if they're brand new and they want to test the waters, or maybe they've never been exposed to sort of a process, they can upload the content through the system, and the software will choose up to 5 different translation agencies to more or less send out multiple quotes. So the client would then get a few different emails, and they can decide what's best for them based off of either price, reputation, quality. Maybe there's a specific language pairing that an agency has over another, and they need that specific language expertise, I should say. Or maybe it's just geographic proximity, right? Maybe they're looking to work with an agency that's within walking or driving distance so that from time to time they can actually go in person and discuss these projects when need be. We do also utilize a shared translation memory database. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the concept of translation memory, we call it TM in the industry. It's a really simple concept. It's nothing more than a bank or a library of previously translated terms and phrases that can be leveraged at later projects to save you time and money. So the idea is that once you've paid to have something translated once, you should never have to pay to get it translated again. And obviously with websites, with marketing emails, there's going to be a lot of repetition in some of that content. So, the more and more you're utilizing the platform, the more that translation memory is increasing. It really will cut down significantly on the time and costs for subsequent projects. And a lot of times we're seeing, the time reduced by 50, 60% or more. So it really does free up marketing teams to be able to do a lot more international campaigning than they ordinarily used to. Some of the clients that have adopted the Translation Exchange platform to date really kind of runs the gambit here. You're looking at everything from large to small. GoPro is probably going to be the most recognizable for some of the international viewers out there. They make those cool cameras that you can go swimming with. You've also got JIF, which is a major medical health provider, helping small and large companies both nationally and internationally. But there really is no kind of magic target or bullet or golden goose, so to speak, that we go after. Obviously, in America, companies are not going to utilize
Just 1 second, we lost Jonas there. He's dialing back in.
I'm sorry about that all. This is the technical age, right? Things happen. Anyway, thanks for bearing with me. Again, you'll see that we don't have any real magic customer here. In America, really the primary target are going to be the mid-market to enterprise companies, the ones that are at the stage where they're trying to break out of just the English market. Obviously, in America, there are enough English speakers where you can do business for years and years and really never have to do anything outside of the English language. In Europe, of course, even for the small companies, it's going to be critical that right off the bat, you get your marketing materials and any code and content into probably up to 5 languages, or else you're missing a lot of opportunity, leaving a lot of money off the table. So really, large, small, wherever there's pain in that process, that's what Translation Exchange was created for, to resolve that and help expedite the entire workflow and cut down on the time and cost significantly of getting that content to the global stage. In terms of pricing scenarios, and we're more than happy to discuss any particular individual scenario offline, but this is one of the more kind of humane and agreeable pricing scenarios I've ever come across. You're looking at everything from a starter package, which a lot of companies can benefit from, doing just a couple of languages with 50,000 words. A basic, which is probably our most popular scenario, you're looking at about 5 languages for 250,000 words. Premium for about 500 a month, 10 languages, 500,000 words. And then enterprise would be sort of ad hoc, obviously. More than happy to, like I said, have any conversation offline and see exactly what your use case is and come up with an appropriate pricing model that fits your budget. It's pretty much it from me on my end, from the 30,000-foot view of how we kind of fit into the whole ecosystem. So what I thought I would do is go ahead and pass the ball over to our CEO and founder, Michael Berkovich, and he'll be able to give you guys a great little inside view and a demo on what we've been doing with Ruby for Rails. And after that, we'll go ahead and open up the platform here for a few questions. So Michael, the ball is yours.
Absolutely, thank you so much. Thanks for Tristan and Jonas for the introduction. And thanks for everybody who joined us today. I'm very excited to show you some of the capabilities we developed for Ruby on Rails. As Jonas mentioned, this technology actually is quite old in a way, like it's probably around 7 years old. It was initially developed as an open source library for Genie, and then Yammer adopted it and many other companies as well. We were the #1 customer for it. So we didn't really build it as a service to start with. We built it to solve our own problem. And once we solved it, we realized that maybe there's other customers who could benefit from using it. But again, we're the #1 user of this technology. So all of our websites, all of our tools, everything we develop ourselves is actually based on this technology. And also even in the marketplace, some of the vendors that we work with today in our marketplace where you can order translations professionally done for your projects, even those agencies now use us to translate their own website. So it's not just a technology that we kind of like develop and trying to sell. It's actually like the #1, we're trying to accommodate our own needs, and we optimize it for what we need, and then everybody else benefits from the same thing. So fundamentally, we actually have kind of 2 sections or 2 kind of levels of what we offer. On one side, we offer the different SDKs, and we include the Rails, PHP, Express, and many other ones. Then also on top of those SDKs, we build many different integrations and plugins into other systems and to different other website building tools and other technologies. Now, but today I'm going to focus on specifically on Ruby on Rails and what we can do with it. We have a quite extensive documentation on Ruby on Rails, and we will share later on with this video. We'll share also all the URLs where you can read more about this. And the Ruby on Rails, basically, it's a library that you can add into your Ruby on Rails application. It's a gem. And rather than doing translations externally, it's actually done, sort of the process happens within your application. So you own the translations, you host the translation. Unlike some of the other solutions like JavaScript solutions or proxy solutions that sort of rely on third-party system to be the intermediary between the translated view and your content, with our technology, you actually embed the technology into your site. It's like any other Ruby on Rails gem that you're used to. It runs with your site. It's fully owned by you. And even if you disconnect from us, you still 100% own the translations. You continue using them and manipulating them. It also comes with this thing called TML. It stands for Translation Markup Language. It's basically our unified and extensive markup that is very, very powerful. It offers all the features that come standard with i18n, but on top of it, it actually extends it and builds all kinds of enhancements like context rules based on genders, language cases, and many other features. Also, translation markup language is fully described here in this document. We'll share this information about this as well. But let's actually jump into a demo and see what we actually can do with this. So I actually went ahead and created a project already called Foodie Demo. on our dashboard. Currently, the project is empty. There is really nothing in it. The only thing I did is I actually went and I added 5 different languages to it. Those are the languages we'll be working with. And you'll see how easy it is actually to add a brand new language and just magically everything will just be translated for you. So let's go to the app. This is a very simple app. We've used it for a few demos before, but ultimately it's just a tiny Rails application with some basic database where it stores very different recipes and has different elements in here. So what we're going to do, we're going to translate the Chrome of the application, but we also will translate data of the application too, which is kind of interesting because we will actually, like those elements for the actual recipes do come from the database, and we might as well just use our technology to translate them too. So the first step that we need to do is we simply need to add the TML Rails to the gem to the application and just run bundle install. I have already done that, but once you do it, the Rails SDK will be installed in your application. Then there's a command, again, this is described in the documentation. You can just run bundle exec Rails init, TML Rails init, and it's going to produce for you a configuration file under the initializers, TML right here. And this is pretty much where you would configure all the aspects of the integration. Specifically, at the very bare minimum, you just need to provide the key. And the key is located inside of the project and the dashboard here. It's actually one of the first elements you see here is the key of the project. Or you can go to the integration section here. You can also get the integration element here too. You can choose Ruby on Rails. It will give you the instruction of how to do the exact integration there. Now going back to the application, I also did some other things here. So for optimal performance, you really want to cache translations as much as you can. And we offer many, many different ways of how the caching can be done. We utilize kind of 2 concepts. One is local caching and one is shared caching. Local caching is basically just you can download the release or automatically deploy the release with your application, and it will just be stored in your folder here, just like this, with the release date timestamp, and all translation will be stored with your application itself. But if you have multiple servers and if you're interested in actually doing hot deploys, and what the hot deploys are is basically be able to deploy translations while your application is still running. You can then utilize a shared cache. So shared cache can be something like Memcache or Redis. So imagine like if you have a farm of servers, maybe 20 different servers, and all of them utilize translations, you can have either local Memcache installed on individual servers, or you can have one centralized Memcache server, and then all the translations will be shared across all your systems. The way this SDK works, it's optimized for this type of performance hits. So it will always pull out the translations in groups and will minimize the amount of effect it's going to have on your application at the runtime. And then the other thing I can configure here is basically a locale strategy. So in this case, I'm using a pre-pass strategy, which basically means it's going to use the locale inside of the URL of the different individual URLs in the routes. Now, the next step that I'm going to do, well, first of all, this is already running. So I can go back to the Fuji Rails application, refresh it, but not much really happening right now. But the SDK is already actually engaged. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is add a language selector so we can actually go and change the languages in the application. Also, I want to quickly show you something for the routes. In the routes file, there is a way, especially if you use a pre-path mechanism, I'm sure you're probably already familiar with this. There's a concept of scopes. So what I did, I surrounded all my controllers with a scope, which allows me to do this type of thing where I can pass a locale as part of the URL. So this will be available in this path. Now, let me go to the navigation bar. So the navigation is basically this top area here. And I'm just going to enable, there's already put a little tag in there. And I'm enabling the language selector for this thing. You can write your own language selector, not a problem. There's an API. You can use the TML library to actually pull all the languages and add a language selector yourself. Or we actually come in and we offer about 10 different variations of language selectors. There's a bootstrap, there's a pop-up. So you can choose from whatever language selector you prefer or build your own. So if I refresh the page now, we should see the language selector appear in the right corner here. It's a pop-up. So if I click on that now, I can see all the languages available in the section. Let's actually go ahead and switch to Russian language here and see what happens. Well, there's nothing actually going on yet because we haven't published any translations yet. The project is empty. There's really nothing going on here yet. So the way we build the system is it has 2 modes. One is a production mode, which is what we're looking at right now. That's what everybody's going to see in production mode. And the second mode is for translators or administrators of the project. This is our in context or translation mode. To activate the translation mode, you can simply click on this button right here, activate translation mode. You can hide this button. I'm just for this demo, I'll make it visible for everybody, but obviously it can be hidden, so not every user has access to it. But simply by clicking on this activate translation mode, it will prompt the user to log in. So users can't just come in and start translating your application. They have to be registered and have access to your application before they can do anything. So I'm going to go and log in right now. And this will basically find the association between me and the project. And now we are logged in. It gave me this bar on the right side with many different tools and features, and I may be able to go cover some of them. But nothing, again, nothing is going on here in the, oh, actually some stuff is already going on. So, but nothing going on here at the very top, right? Because I haven't actually identified or indicated that I really want to translate those elements. So what do I need to do? In a typical scenario, when you're dealing with just standard ITNN framework, you would typically will have to go and wrap a string like this with a T method. Then you take and maybe call it a greeting, and then you wrap it like this, and then this is what you do, right? This is a typical scenario. And this is fine. We're 100% compliant with this approach. So if you prefer manually extracting all the strings and putting them in the resource files under your locales, under English file right here, this is where the greeting is, it's perfectly fine, not a problem. We support that. And the way to support it is by making the TML to be a backend on the standard ITNN framework. Now, and this is one of the approaches, and maybe like for this first section, I'm going to use this approach of the T. But then you don't really have to do this. You can actually just wrap up. You could have done the same thing without doing any of this stuff. You could actually keep the content as is. And let me actually show you like first with this approach and refresh it. You will see that it will be now identified as a translatable string. It immediately actually sees that they want to translate the string and underlines this. The underlined orange color basically means that the string has been identified. It has not been yet registered in local cache or in any cache. So it says the brand new string, let me synchronize with the server. So after the page was loaded, it asynchronously send the string to the server. If I refresh it again, it will actually now be identified. And it happened to already have in our global translation memory, it happened to have a translation for it. So now it's already translated to Russian language. Now it's an identical thing if I were just to completely ignore this greeting stuff and I just simply put the actual label in here, but instead of T, I'm using the TR method, which is our internal method, and I refresh it, it's actually the same effect. So again, it's already translated. So what this means, what I can actually do with this is many different things. One thing I can do is I can just simply right mouse click on the string, and I will get an in-context inline translation tool here. And our system is, unlike standard translation memories, we actually have a very robust mechanism of how translations are stored. We have a graph database behind the scene that runs translation association. So for this string, we see there is multiple actual translation options, and each translation option has a different rank. So you could lock the translation that is most applicable to you. So for example, here, the first translation here, few of them have the same ranking, but let's say I want to use the second translation where everything is lowercase rather than capitalized. I'm going to just click on the log button right here. And now this translation is the approved one. Notice that the green color now, if I refresh it, it will change to blue, which basically indicates it also uses different translation now because I chose and approved the now translation rather than the previous one. Now, if I don't like any one of those translations, I can simply click on translate it yourself and then go ahead and provide the translation myself in place here. We also give you machine suggestions. You can choose a machine suggestion here. We also have an extensive commenting system. You can leave comments, and other translators who are working on the system can communicate with each other. We also have a glossary. If you have built your own glossary, we will match all the glossary terms right from here. But I don't really have anything set up right now, so we can't really see anything. So let's actually go ahead and translate everything else, sort of quickly see how this whole page will be localized. So again, all I need to do here is I just simply wrap it with the TR method. This is our categories, refresh it again. First time I refresh, they're all orange. I refresh it again, they're going to be all green. They're already all translated. Let's actually translate this salads here too, which basically is an element, I believe, category name here. So I'm going to translate the category name as well, refresh it. So this should also be green. Actually, first it's going to get, okay, it's already green. So it's already been synchronized. And the entire page, I happen already to wrap the other stuff with the TR method. So now the entire page is now translated. So basically all I need to do now is have a translator or proofreader to go through all the different sections here and approve them. You can either right mouse click on them, see what the translations are, and approve them from here or translate it yourself. You can also view additional translations if there are any one available there, or you can simply go and click on the log button right here. And this basically just approve the translation immediately, and it becomes good. Now, by default, our system is set up so that when you publish a release, let me actually go to the navigation there. when you publish a release, and by the way, like we have a shortcut keys too. You can just do like in different editors. You can just install some of our shortcut capabilities, and it will automatically wrap everything for you. I believe it's TN. Oops, actually, let me just do TR here. So basically, by default, our system is set up to only publish reviewed and approved translations. And now we should see those translate already to orange, and then if I refresh it again, it should be now green. Because I mean, the reason why they're coming up green is because I have a global translation memory and we're matching translations in the global translation memory. You can opt out of using it, you don't have to, and then you have to translate everything yourself. So I'm sorry, like I keep coming back to this. So by default, our system is set up to only release published translations that have been reviewed and approved by proofreaders. Now, this is all configurable in the settings of the project. By the way, this is where you can also opt in or opt out from the global translation memory. You can also opt in or opt out from the machine suggestions. So for example, let's say if I disable UTM suggestions and I go back to the application and I refresh it, notice that all the green elements will become red because we no longer suggest or recommend you the translations from our global translation memory. Let me go enable them back. And then the other option we have here is the release only log translations. By default, it was on, but I disabled it because I wanted to give you a demo of what actually a release looks like. So let's actually go back now, and we're in translation mode. And if I go and deactivate the translation mode again here, everything will go back to English. The reason why is because in production, we haven't actually published anything. So it tries to pull it from a local cache or mem cache or whatever the configuration you have, but nothing is in there. So to actually publish translation to production, and notice one really cool thing, because I'm using the shared translation memory or shared local cache, I don't even have to restart the application. The application is still fully running, and all I'm doing here is I'm going to the releases section, and I just pretty much just publish the new translation release, publish it here. What it does is basically takes all translations, creates a bundle, distributes this bundle to the CDN, notifies a specific location in CDN that there is a new release available. I can actually click on this bundle, and I can see exactly what's inside of it. So I can see the progress of the languages, how they've been translated. I can explore here, and I can see all the actual what's actually inside of the bundle. Again, you can easily download this bundle and have it as part of your application. And now if I go back to the Rails, now the SDK is actually aware that there is a new release in the CDN, and by simply refreshing it, it will know that there is a new version, and on-demand download the version, install it, expand it, and now your application is live with translations. So basically, we made the translation process sort of parallel to your development efforts. As developers are working in the code, they no longer need to, extract content into the files, upload the files translation agencies, doing all the stuff manually. The entire thing is fully 100% integrated with our system. And now I can shut down the translation change altogether, which I'm not going to do. But if you were to bring the translations into your system, your application is at the moment running completely independent from our system. So now you host the translations, you deploy them, and you run them. So this is kind of like the high level of what we can do. I want to spend maybe a few more seconds to show you a couple of more tools that come with the system, and then we'll switch to the to answer questions. One thing I want to show you, kind of quickly, just give you an idea of what some of the TML syntax looks like. So I'm going to just go here, and right under this label, I'm going to create another H2 tag, and I'll just give you an example of our pluralization rules. So let's say I have a sentence, something like you have count messages. So if I go and create a count here, and I'm going to give it 1, notice there's a problem here. If it's 1, if it's 2, that's fine because it's plural form of 2 messages. But if it's 1, then it's not going to work because messages here depends on the value of count. So we have actually syntax again. You can review all the syntax in the system. We're smart enough to be able to do pluralization for you on the fly. So you really don't need to do anything more than just this. I mean, there is an extended syntax of this. Of course, there is the way it originally started. It used to be 1 message and then other messages. But developers complain that this is way too much to type, so we removed all this stuff, and now it's very smart and just simple like this. And if you go back in here, you will notice that it will do polarization for you on the fly automatically. So you have 1 message, and then if I change the value of it, so it already has a Russian translation for this, and I simply change the value for it, you'll notice that the Russian translation will change the ending, and if I change 5, so we have all the stuff built into the system, pluralization, gender-based rules, and anything else. Then the other thing I want to show you here is some of the features here in the toolbar. One is basically detects, per page detects all the strings you have here, and you can simply click on a string in this toolbar, and it will show you where the string appears on the page. Another feature we have is the progress, which basically tells you the progress of each individual page. We're building more reporting features into here soon. Another feature is shopping cart. The shopping cart basically allows you to just take any string, just drop it in here into the shopping cart, and you can just pretty much initiate the checkout process right from here. So you can check out, and it will take you to the translation marketplace where you can place translation orders for that. We also have a concept of smart screenshots, where basically you just click and take screenshot here. And sometimes you may have pages that translators may not have access to in context. So rather than doing the translations in context, translators actually can use our screenshots, and then those screenshots will be attached. All the strings from the pages will be attached to the screenshots, and they'll be able to work in context. But rather than working off the live side, they'll be able to click on the individual elements inside the screenshot and provide translations this way. We even have capability for CSS modifications. So for example, let's say for a specific language, you have something that doesn't fit in or doesn't quite work. You can simply identify this element and provide an additional CSS in here component. So this will be served as part of the translation package, and you'll be able to modify things. So you don't have to code anything yourself. Everything will be identified by our system, and we'll be able to pick it up and pull it up for you. So this is kind of pretty much on this side that I wanted to show you. There are many other tools that are coming up, like tickets and all kind of interesting things that will be available very, very soon with us. I want to show you like maybe like very, very brief ability. I want to mention one more thing actually. So we have different functions here on the backend. Some of them called TR, some of TRLs. Again, everything is available in our documentation. Let's say you have a static page like this, and you want to translate this entire page. So you really don't have to go and wrap every string in this page by hand. We have a function for this, so I'll show you how this function works. So if I go to this about page, this is the page right here, index, and everything's here plain text right now. So all you simply need to do is you just write a function here called trh do, and you just close the function at the end. So imagine it's running a little micro proxy, but inside of your code. So I just wrapped everything in trh, refresh it, and now SDK is smart enough to actually parse it all out. I identified all different elements in this entire section, refresh it, and now I have all the different elements that are not translated yet. Now, speaking of which, so this is actually brings me to the next element that I want to show you, is our automation flows, workflow automations. So if I go back to the dashboard here, the workflows is the newest addition to our system. This is where you can configure all kind of interesting automation mechanisms of what you want to do when certain things happen. So I created a very simple workflow where the workflow is triggered by registering new keys. And then once the keys are registered, I'm going to submit a quick order to Google for all the languages. Since we're working with Russian language right now, I'm just going to use Russian untranslated. I'm going to update it for now. And then we're going to wait until the order is completed, and then I'm going to send a Slack message whether the order was successful or failed. But as you can see, there are many, many other steps here. You can build a very custom workflow of what you want to do on every step of the process. So now let me just go and add a trigger here. So the trigger here will be new keys, and then will be type. This is the workflow we're going to trigger, and the type will be when new keys are registered. So let me save it up. Actually, sorry about this. We're actually still having technical difficulties. I was hoping that it will be available, but I'm going to run this workflow manually. So I'm just going to just simply trigger the workflow. So once we fix the triggers on our side, it will be automatically triggered by incoming changes. So I should be able to see now an order coming in, and the order will be submitted for us just in a second. And then everything here will be translated by the workflow. So that just takes a few seconds for this whole thing to get activated. So there we go. So everything was already actually triggered and translated. And I can see that, actually, let me just enable translation mode again. I can see that all the translations already came through, and they're all available in our system. And this kind of summarizes everything I wanted to show you. And I guess let's go to the questions, and I'll try to answer any questions you have. Back to you, Jones.
Great, thanks, Michael, and fantastic demo there. Really appreciate it. Looks like we've got a few questions coming in here. The first one is from Susan. She asks, what file formats do you guys currently support? Is it only XLIF, or do you work with others such as JPEG, PNG, DocX? You want to answer that, Michael?
Yeah, absolutely. So besides, this is up until now I've been showing our registration automation kind of flow, whereas DK pushes the data to us automatically. But if you are already accustomed and used to standard I8NN and you just have the files and you want to upload files to us, we have a framework where you can upload any type of file format to us right now. We support about 20 different file formats. Some file formats are parsable, others are not parsable. For example, anything that's localization specific, like YAMLs, JSON files, or XLE files, we will actually extract content from them. Other formats which are not parsable are like images, JPEGs, PNGs. We don't really have OCR at the moment, so those files will still be uploaded. And you still can place orders through us to the marketplace, but we just won't be able to extract content from them. So to answer your question, like in the short, we support every file format. It's just some file formats will be processed and some other formats will just be kept as they are, but you can still place order with them with the agencies that support those file formats.
Fantastic, thank you. And looks like we got another one here from Christoph. He had asked, I'd like to know if there's any way to leverage Action Mailer preview for email translations.
Oh, actually, absolutely. It's a great question. It just requires a little bit of setup, and we can maybe take it offline. It's just the way the current TML init starts up is from, I believe controller before action gets triggered to start to initialize it. But the init method can be started manually as well. It just requires little steps of configuration, and let's actually maybe have a conversation about this, and I'll show you exactly how to configure it. We definitely can send emails using and translate emails using the same technology. And then there's also, I believe there's an email previewer plugin for Action Mailer, and you can even use that to translate emails in context, like I was doing translation on the side. Definitely possible, just need extra configuration. Let's take it offline for sure.
Cool, thanks, Michael. Looks like we got another one here from Evgeny. He asks, can we work with a translation agency of our choosing? I can handle that. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, Evgeny, we're 100% vendor agnostic. If you're already working with an agency and you're happy with it, great. You can absolutely keep using them. And whenever you're onboarded, we'll make sure to get them a username and password as well so that they'll be onboarded at the same time and we can answer any questions they have and they'll be able to utilize the platform to receive any of those projects that you'll send to them. But of course, if you're looking to use a different agency or you're brand new to translation, you can always send any projects through the platform and allow Translation Exchange to choose up to 5 different agencies to give you multiple quotes, and you can choose what's best for you. Let's see, the next one we have is from Alan, probably best for Michael here. He asks, our company is very, capital V, very, very concerned about security. Is an on-premise solution available?
Yeah, good question. Actually, this keeps coming up, but I believe even in the previous webinar, somebody asked about this question. So basically, yes, we do offer on-premise solution. Our technology can be packaged we utilize different, different kind of subsystems, but they can be packaged and be deployed within the company, within the organization. So you will maintain your own database of translations. You will maintain all the services internally. So yes, it's definitely available.
Cool. Looks like Maria had asked us, I love what I see so far. Thanks, Maria. On average, how long does it take to onboard a new client and get trained on how to utilize the platform and integration? Basically, Maria, typically our onboarding is about a half hour to an hour phone call at most. Usually it only takes about a half hour or less. And then maybe another hour or so to familiarize yourself with any of the other features and functionality on your own. But obviously we have great customer support. If there's any specific questions, you can always email us or give us a ring and we'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. So it's a pretty simple process to onboard yourself and familiarize yourself with the software. We're pretty confident that it won't take you long at all to get yourself up to speed. Let's see, looks like a question from Michael from Oscar. Can you please discuss how secure your website is? What is the average up and down time on Translation Exchange?
Again, so remember, as I was mentioning earlier, in production time, when you're running the site in production, you're actually not communicating with us. Everything's 100% served by you. The only thing you may be getting information from is the CDN. And again, our CDN is just a choice. We just give it to you as a sort of, just to simplify the configuration process. but you could use your own CDN, you could use your own local storage of translations, you can use your own local cache of translations. So in production time, there is no dependency on our uptime. So you only need us when you're in translation mode, so you can submit translations to us, so your translators can work on your content. You also need us for publishing releases, but then after that, unlike all other solutions that require some kind of intervention, we completely run inside your application, so you don't really depend on us. Our uptime typically is, it's based on standard. We have some SLAs. So if we decide, like, if we build a contract with a company, we can sign SLAs, and we have 99.999 uptime. So our system is distributed. We use AWS behind the scene. So we have systems running in multiple different regions. We utilize CloudFront CDN, which is distributed across the world, and there's many servers running around the world. And then in terms of security, so your information is stored. So we have a multi-tier translation memory, just to kind of let you know how the system works behind the scene. So we have a global translation memory, which is completely up to you if you want to opt into it or not. Then you have the project translation memory, and then you have a source level translation memory. So both project actually and organization translation memory is actually coming up very soon. So all those translation memories are internal to you. Nobody has access to your content. It's 100% stored by you. We're actually now looking into, we don't encrypt it yet, but it's something we'll be doing soon. So the data that you're storing in our system will all the translation keys will be also encrypted. Now, so it's all secure. Everything is behind SSL. Everything utilizes access tokens which expire. So we have a lot of different levels of how we ensure that our system is secure and there are no loopholes or holes in our system. I hope this answers your question.
Great. Let's see. We've got a question from George. He asked, once your strings are marked up for translation on your site, does your client then need to manually go to each string to select and translate each string versus sending a complete file out to be translated and consumed upon return?
I was just a good question, but I was just obviously demoing some of our capabilities here of in-context translations. But you definitely don't need to do any of this stuff. Let me actually go into translation mode again. You don't have to do any of that manual translations here. Basically, you can just simply go to your site. You have, when we extract all the strings, you first of all see your project translation memory, which is all your strings that were pulled out. Then we also, as the strings get registered in our system, they also get automatically organized by sources. And it's completely up to you how you want to organize sources. By default, it uses the controller action kind of mechanism. So you'll see them, and you'll see them all registered the same way as controller name and action name is. And you can click on any one of them and see exactly what the strings are inside. Now, you can also build subsources. For example, let's say I have multiple different pages that have a navigation bar and footer. And you can see that there is a subsource that I identified as our navigation bar. All the navigation elements are stored in that subsource. So that everything is completely dynamically organized for you. And what you can do, you can order all the strings, all the translations, either from here, you can select individual strings you want to translate. You can also go from here and order the entire, create a new order of the entire source, or you can just simply go to the strings and just simply place an order for all of the strings. So you just do order all the strings, and then you proceed with the order. You choose whether you want to do the quote. You can submit a quote for translators to review your order and bid on it, or you can just choose a provider yourself. So for this case, I'm just going to go and choose, just for now, just use the machine translations here. And I will choose that I want to translate now to Japanese this time. Preview order, and then complete order. So I just send the order for all of the strings. So I can click here, and I can actually see, you can actually see the order is actually being fulfilled right now by the machines. And here's, as it fulfills it, you'll see all the strings being populated. So no, it's done just once, and everything is translated for you. You don't need to do it per each one. It's good. The in-context translation tool is good for somebody to review in log translation. So if you have your internal team that does reviews, that will be an ideal for them to just make sure that your site looks okay and then review what they want to publish. And now we just finished the Japanese. Now I can go here, publish it again, publish it. And once the thing is built, I should be able to see the entire site now translate to Japanese. Just give it a second. And it takes really, the way it's set up right now, it takes almost no time. You can also control the time, how much time it takes between the builds. So here, I'm going to switch to Japanese now. And now the site is fully in Japanese. So I did it in one hit. So hopefully this answers your question.
Great, thanks, Michael. We got one last one from Brian. He asks, our development team is going to be creating a brand new website later this year, but it won't be on Ruby. We haven't decided yet, but it's going to be either PHP or Node.js. Is this something you'll be able to support?
Great question. Yes, absolutely. We do have same type of SDKs we now have for PHP. We have the same SDK for Node.js for Express. We have for Python, for Django. We're missing actually documentation here, but we do have SDK now for Java. Actually, maybe they're right here. So we have SDKs for Java. We have SDKs for Android, for mobile devices, Objective-C, Angular, Backbone. So there's many different SDKs, and we're actually missing a few here that we're going to add the documentation for too. So same, everything I showed you just now in Ruby on Rails, I could have done exactly the same demo using one of the other technologies. So yes, we offer technologies like this for other languages too.
Okay, fantastic. Let's see, I double check if we have anything else. We got one more quick follow-up from Christoph, which we can also take offline if need be, but he mentioned he'd come across a couple of issues with texts that are not DOM elements, such as placeholders or submit buttons values. Is it possible to enable additions for such an element as well?
Yes.
We're getting placeholders in form of HTML string that is displayed inside input.
Absolutely, there's methods for that too. I guess the best way to do it, I mean, you're getting into some more specific questions. Let's actually take it offline and let's have a conversation about it, and I'll show you how this can be configured. And then I'll make sure that whatever I show you, I'll document it in our documentation section as well.
Sounds great. So yeah, you can reach either anybody on this webinar who has a technical question. You can reach either Michael. He's just michael@translationexchange.com. Myself, Jonas, anything related to partnerships or business development, I'm Jonas@translationexchange.com. And then Tristan, who's heading up our sales team, he's Tristan@translationexchange.com. So happy to answer anything else in more detail offline. But other than that, looks like we've just about reached the end of the webinar here. So I want to thank you all for joining us. Really appreciate it. We're going to be sending out a recording of this webinar to anybody that's attended, so you can share that and watch it again if need be. Other than that, I'll pass it off to Tristan here to thank you all again, say goodbye, and we look forward to seeing you on the next webinar.
Yep. Thanks everybody for attending, and we'll go ahead and send a recording of this webinar out to you all. And really appreciate your time and enjoy the rest of the day. Thanks so much.
Thank you guys. Bye.
Thank you.